Today is October 21st, 2020. We're here in Gwinnett County Magistrate Court. We're conducting preliminary hearings by way of Zoom video conferencing. This is a result of the Supreme Court Justice's order suspending all in-court proceedings due to COVID-19. Parties have agreed to proceed by way of video conferencing and waive any technical difficulties to this process. The matter before the court is the state of Georgia versus Charles Young. Mr. Young is represented by Lawrence Lewis. And on behalf of the state, I have Assistant District Attorney Amina Bakari. Mr. Young is charged on warrant number 20W13601 with obstruction of a law enforcement officer. On 20W13602, giving false information. Warrant number 20W07919 with reckless conduct. Warrant number 20W07920 with possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute. On warrant number 20W07921 with possession of a firearm during a felony. And warrant number 20W09242 with fleeing and attempting to elude. And again on warrant number 20W09243 with reckless driving. Are those the charges in which the state is proceeding?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay. Ms. Bakari, Day Bakari, you may proceed.
Thank you. We have first Officer Altman. If you can please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. And please state your full name.
Jacob Altman.
How are you employed?
I'm employed with the Gwinnett County Police Department.
Are you post-certified?
Yes, I am.
Did you take 3 warrants in this case for reckless conduct, possession of methamphetamine with, or marijuana with intent, and possession of firearm during a felony?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us how that came to be?
On June 3rd of this year, myself and other officers were dispatched to it came out as a possible person shot call. A family member had heard from another family member that her brother had possibly been shot. She was unsure. She was unable to get in contact with him. She just knew of the address of where he was. So myself and other officers, we responded to the address that was given, and we were able to find a male sleeping on a couch. His name was Brad Wiggum. After speaking with Brad, he lifted up his shirt and showed that he had actually, in fact, been shot. What appeared to be bird shot out of a shotgun. He had probably hundreds of very small holes up through his leg, his thigh, and into his stomach and chest area, and some in his arm. We spoke to Brad and asked him, what happened. And Brad stated that he was staying, the house that he was at was not his. He was staying with a friend named Brady Brumbelow. Brad said that one of Brady's friends came over to sell him marijuana. Brad said that the friend came over, the friend sold Brady the marijuana, and then they started to smoke it, and Charles Young, picked up the shotgun and was looking at it. I believe the shotgun belonged to Brady, but picked up the firearm, and the firearm was loaded, and he accidentally pulled the trigger and shot Brad point blank, sitting right in front of him. When we spoke with Brad, he stated that he actually didn't know who the male was. He said it was Brady's friend. He said he had never met him before. He just came over to sell Brady marijuana. When we spoke with Brady, he was hesitant at giving us the information of who the male was. Brady only identified the male as he named him Cash Graham Demetrius. I believe that's a nickname. We couldn't find any information on a Cash Graham Demetrius at all anywhere. We asked Brady if he knew where Cash lived. Brady stated, I believe I have it word for word in my report, Brady stated that Cash lives in the subdivision, quote unquote, the one past the Fairmont subdivision. Don't go to the end of the street, but take that first right and he lives at the third house in. We went over there, and we canvassed the area. We couldn't find really anything to go off of, but if you follow those directions, that would put Cash living on Austin Ridge Drive off of River Pass Court into Cula, based on those directions that Brady gave us. After that, CSI responded. The amount of marijuana that was collected, Brady handed over to police on scene of what he purchased from Cash Graham Demetrius. The shotgun that was also used, that was accidentally discharged and shot Brad Wiggum, was also collected by CSI. Brad ended up going to the hospital and was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. A few days later, while working in the same area, I hear over the radio another officer get dispatched to an address. And this is, I believe, if I can check the dates, only a couple days later. It's possibly the next shift after our long weekend. It was on the 5th, so 2 days later, an unrelated call came out that I heard over the radio. They dispatched us the address is at 2873 Austin Ridge Drive. And just because I was the one that handled the original call on Rooks Road, I spoke with the officer afterwards and asked him just kind of the gist of what that call was about. And he gave me an idea. And I asked him, who did you speak with? And he said he spoke with a male named Charles Young. We recapped and looked at the body camera footage of the officer speaking with Charles Young, and the male in the body camera footage, Charles Young, resembled almost to a T the description that Brad Wiggum had given to me on June 3rd. He said that he was over 6 foot, over 200 pounds. He had light skin complexion and had dark curly hair. At this time, we were not positive that this was the same male identified as Cash Graham Demetrius that Brady had given us, because Brad didn't know his real name or really know who he was. But this address, the 2783 Austin Ridge, was in the exact same area of where Brady said that Cash lived. And this house was the fourth house in, just not the third house. So doing a little digging, we ended up, Corporal Montero with the Gwinnett County Police Department created a photo lineup. I believe it had 6 photos in it. We used a photo of Charles Young, and we remade contact with the victim, Brad Wiggum, who had been shot, and we conducted a photo lineup with him. The photo lineup was done by Sergeant Hughes. Sergeant Hughes is with the Gwinnett County Police Department. He was not on duty the night of the initial incident on Rooks Road. He is unfamiliar with all subjects in the case. He went over the photo lineup affidavit with Brad. Brad stated he understood, he agreed, he signed it, and the photo lineup was given to Brad. Brad looked at the photo lineup and he selected a photo out of the photo lineup. We asked him if there was any males that he recognized, and he did pick out a photo, and he picked out a photo of Charles Young. Based on now that we had a general idea of who Charles Young was, I found probable cause to pull out the warrants for the charges that I had selected and obtained from the magistrate on duty. Those charges were reckless conduct for discharging a firearm, handling a loaded firearm in close proximity with another person while in the commencement of selling, distributing, and smoking marijuana. Firearm was accidentally discharged, resulting in Brad Wiggum taking a full load of birdshot from a 12-gauge shotgun at point-blank range. The possession of marijuana with intent to distribute. Per Brady and Brad, Charles Young came to the address on Rooks Road to sell and distribute marijuana. All were partaking in smoking when Charles handled the loaded firearm and accidentally discharged it. The marijuana was still on scene and was recovered by us, that Brady handed over that he had purchased from Charles Young. And the possession of the firearm and the commission of a felony. Possession of marijuana with intent to distribute is a felony, and during the commencement of the sale and possession, Charles Young handled and was in possession of the firearm when he accidentally discharged it.
Okay. And the person that came to identify as Charles Young, do you see him participating in this hearing today?
I've never actually met him or seen him, but from the photo lineup that was conducted in the photo that we obtained, yes, that's him right there in the green jumpsuit.
He appears to be the person that was identified by Brad in the photo lineup.
Yes, and the actual copy of the photo lineup was submitted to evidence.com, and the actual physical photo lineup that was circled, initialed, signed in the affidavit was also submitted into evidence at our police headquarters. Yes, he was the one in the photo lineup.
And the location of the person shot call that you initially responded to, was that in Gwinnett County?
Yes, it was.
And that was a residence?
Yes, that was 251 Rooks Road in the city of Tequila.
Is that an apartment?
No, it's an actual address. It's a house. I believe it's the actually only house on Rooks Road. It's behind, I think, a body shop. But it is a physical address.
And so when you got there, how many individuals were in the house?
Brad was asleep on the couch. Brady was in the back sleeping with, I think it's his girlfriend and their baby, and then Brady's mother. So 1, 2, 3, 4 total were in the house. I believe only Brady and Brad and Charles were in the house at the time of the firearm being discharged.
And what leads you to believe that?
Excuse me?
Why do you believe that?
Believe that they were the only ones?
At the time of the shooting? Because
the mother was interviewed as well, and I believe she didn't have any information. I don't remember if she said that there was a number of officers that were there interviewing. I don't believe I was the one specifically, but I believe she couldn't give us any information, or she wasn't around when it happened.
Okay. And as you described, Brad was asleep when you arrived. Did he appear to be in distress? Was he losing consciousness or just sleeping peacefully?
Well, it took us quite a while to bang on the door for him to actually finally wake up. I'm not entirely sure what his actual state was. His wounds were still bleeding at that time, and he agreed to not go to the hospital initially when it happened because I think he was scared. But when we got there, he had some makeshift bandages, and when the fire department got there and was looking at his wounds, he was still bleeding, laying on the couch.
Okay, so it looked like he had attempted, or someone had attempted to kind of
clean
him up or give him some aid.
Right, yeah. But with that many small pellets embedded in his skin, there wasn't really much that a normal first aid did do in the bathroom.
And based on just being in the house or from the statements of Brad or Brady, were you able to determine what portion of the house the shooting occurred in?
Yes, it happened right there in the living room. So right when you walk into the house, you're in the living room. There was a few couches and I think some chairs, and it happened right there. Brad showed us the chair that he was sitting in where he was shot.
And did you see any pellets or anything consistent with that on the floor?
Yes, okay. Pellets were detected. I believe the actual load of the shotgun was also found as
well. So did it appear to be one load that was fired?
Yes. Yeah, we had to determine whether or not to make sure that it was not malicious. After speaking with both of them, we tried to understand if another shot was fired, and we tried to try and find. I believe we found where you could see the holes, and it matched where Brad actually stated where he was sitting when he was shot. We found evidence that his story matched up, and only one shot was fired.
Okay. So that one shot, the pellets had hit Brad from kind of the stomach area or up to his arms?
I was able to photograph him after the fact. He was transported out of there pretty quickly. We interviewed him as quickly as possible before the fire department transported him. I do have photographs. He was shot, I believe, from his knee up through his side, up to just about his chest area. There might have been some that got into his shoulder, but it was mostly right in the hip, upper thigh groin area.
Okay. And were both of them able to give you account of just the events leading up to the shot for you to determine whether or not it was malicious or an accident?
Can you say that question one more time?
So was either Brad and or Bradley able to describe kind of the activity that was leading up there, sitting in the living room prior to the shot, to determine if the defendant's action was malicious?
Yes. They were in there. They stated that they were in the room. They were in the living room. They were smoking, and the shotgun belonging to Brady, I believe, was leaning up against the wall. And at some point, Charles Young was handling the firearm. I think Brady said he just wanted to see it, because I think the shotgun was actually pretty new at the time. I don't know their prior relationship, if he had ever seen it before or whatnot, but I believe he was just handling it just to look at it, and it was accidentally discharged. That's what both of their statements were.
Did they mention whether there was any discussion of whether it was loaded prior to it being shot?
That I don't know.
Okay. Did they describe how long Mr. Young had been there at the house prior to this incident?
No, not to my knowledge. Only that they both stated, or it was stated, that he had come over there to sell Brady marijuana. Brad just happened to be there. Brad didn't know him.
Okay, and was Brad participating in smoking?
I believe so, yes.
Was there, were you able to get any type of a time frame of like whether it had been hours, some long period of time, or was this all kind of a fairly short encounter from the arrival and sale to the incident?
I don't believe it's listed in my narrative. I have the time frame from about 7 to 7:30 that evening. We got there later that night. It came in from a third party. It just was a sister that had stated that she had heard from a friend that her brother had been shot. I'd have to pull up the text of the call to see when we were dispatched. And it's possible that it's in their witness statements. I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay, so the 911 call was between 7 and 7:30?
No, I believe, the 911 call was much later. It possibly could have even been into the next morning. I have the incident time listed on my report as 7 to 7:30. I believe that's possibly the time that I was given, but I don't know for sure. But it was much earlier. Brad was sleeping on the couch, and at that point, with no intentions of trying to go to the hospital, it was Mr. sent us there to check on him to see if it actually had happened.
Okay. And the second call a couple of days later, handled by another officer, who was that officer?
His name is Officer Truesdale with the Gwinnett County Police Department. I believe his badge number is 1938.
From that incident, was the defendant taken into custody at all?
No, he was just spoken to.
Just kind of as a witness?
I believe he was actually the suspect in a theft of a driver's license or a credit card, but I believe that was actually returned, so no charges were filed.
Okay. But you were able to review that body cam footage?
Yeah, when I heard the address come out over the radio, it clicked, because we were just over there canvassing the other night for due to this incident. So I just spoke to the Officer Truesdale. I was just asking him, like, hey, what was going on with that call? And he told me about it, and I said, what did the guy look like? And he described about the exact same thing that Brad had described to me. So then I looked at the body camera footage, and it just kind of lined up the descriptions and the general location. So that's why we went with Charles Young's photo for the photo lineup.
And you stated that the marijuana had been collected from Brad that had not been smoked.
Right.
Do you know about how much that was?
It was Brady that handed it over. It was recovered from Brady's room. Brady was the one who was buying it. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was 0.05. Excuse me. It was just under an ounce. It was 0.95 ounces. Just under an ounce.
Okay. Did you observe an odor of marijuana consistent with people having just been smoking in the house?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you participate in the photo lineup with Brad?
I was standing adjacent to it. I did not participate in it.
Okay.
Sergeant Hughes with the Gwinnett County Police Department was the one conducting.
Did he make any statements of how sure he was of that identification?
You'd have to rewatch my body camera footage. He was the only one that he pointed to. He didn't glance over it or say I'm not sure. He said him and pointed to Charles Young's photo.
Okay, but that was captured on your body cam?
Yes.
All right, and pretty sure I had something else, but that's all the questions I have at this time.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, I would have objected earlier to the identification coming from Brad Wiggum, the person who was actually shot, identifying my client, but as being Charles Young. But I think it's irrelevant because the witnesses testified that Corporal Madero has in fact pulled a photo of Charles Young and put it in the photo spread. I don't think that a person that's shot can vouch for the photo being Charles Young. The person can vouch that that's who shot him, but he can't vouch that that's Charles Young. You understand what I'm saying, Judge? The prosecutor had asked a question related to Brad Wiggum saying that that's Charles Young in the photo. He can't say that. All he can say is it's somebody that ultimately shot him. I didn't object because Corporal Madero would have known this is the photo that we're admitting of Charles Young when they showed it to Brad Wiggum. Does that make sense, Judge?
He identified him.
Exactly. I had an objection, but it was to the frame of the question. But the Corporal Madero put my client, who he knew was Charles Young, in the photo spread. So it was. I had an objection to how it was done, but there's an alternate way to do it, so I didn't raise that objection. Good afternoon, Officer Altman. How are you?
How are you?
Okay, good. The judge here on the bench, she's able to keep a straight face better than I am when she hears crazy facts. These facts sound a little crazy to me, but I'm going to ask you questions based on what you told me. It's my understanding that you get a call some hours, maybe the next day, from someone who's not on the scene of the shooting that she may have heard on the text or social media that her brother shot. Am I right about that? Some
Correct.
Hours later, or maybe the next day.
Yep.
Okay. And you arrive and you knock on the door. Does the person who's actually shot answer the door?
No, he's seen sleeping on the couch from the door, not answering when we're banging on it. No, he actually wakes up and answers the door.
Okay, he wakes up, he answers the door. And you're talking to him for how long before he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm shot"?
He doesn't say it. We ask him because we had that information prior.
The judge is just better than me. So the guy that's shot with the bird shot, he's talking to the police and he's still not telling you, "Oh, by the way, I got shot." You're asking him, "Have you gotten shot?" He says, "Oh, that's right," and lifts up his shirt and says, "I got shot." Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Does he appear to be under the influence of any drugs at that time, Brad Wiggum?
I don't know. He was asleep when we woke him up.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell you.
Okay, he was drowsy and groggy. We don't know if it's from sleep or if he was still high.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Fair enough. And Brad and I try to be fair. And Brad and Brady told you they were both smoking at the time the gun went off. Is that right?
Yes.
Based on what you saw, could you tell if when the shotgun went off, if it went off at an angle going up or the barrel was facing Brad Wiggum? Could you tell it all? I understand where he got hit, but was it somebody put the gun down and it shot up and hit him going up, or was somebody facing him when the gun was discharged? Could you tell that?
So based on only I could tell you is exactly what Brad told us. He was sitting down in a chair and Charles was standing up in front of him. Charles is, I believe, over 6 foot. I'd imagine that the gun was facing at a downward angle. If it was facing at a level angle, it probably would have shot him in the face. I would say based on where it was, the gun was angled downwards when it was discharged.
Okay, and did you see Bird shot in the couch where Brad was sitting?
I don't know if CSI recovered it out of the actual chair that he was sitting in, but it was on the floor behind the chair, and it was on the floor underneath the chair.
And were you the were you designated as the investigator who sends this shotgun off to see if we can get fingerprints and or DNA off the shotgun, or was that somebody else?
That would be CSI. They're the ones, they responded, so they collected it and put it into evidence themselves. I don't know what type of analysis they did afterwards or put in the form for the actual analysis. I didn't do that. CSI did.
And the story you got from Brad and Brady, it was accidental, correct? No argument before, nobody seemed angry. Supposedly the person that sold the marijuana was handling the gun and it discharged. Is that right?
Correct. It was. Okay. They both said it was an accident.
Okay, when you spoke to Brady, did you ask Brady why he didn't bother to call the police or call the ambulance or drive his buddy?
I believe they didn't want Cash to get in trouble, and they didn't want to get in trouble. I believe they were scared. They just didn't call 911.
Okay, and they didn't tell the, if I understand it correctly, Brady has a new baby.
Yeah, he had a baby in the back room that was sleeping when we got there on scene.
Okay, and obviously this may not have happened while the baby was present, but they're not telling like the baby's mama or Brady's mother. Nobody's telling anybody anything about a shooting that may have happened while they were out?
No.
So it's just a big secret. Dude gets shot, is laying there, and it's just a big secret.
I guess so.
Okay. Go ahead.
A 14-year-old who lives down the road actually went there. I don't know why, but he was there later that evening, saw that Brad had been shot, and he was the one that texted Brad's sister and told her that I think your brother has been shot.
Okay, so but for the 14-year-old, the buckshots might still be in Brad now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions, Judge.
Okay, any redirect from the state?
Yes, one question. So when you arrived, you said you asked Brad about whether or not he had been shot. Was this after other conversation, or was this the first thing you were asking him about?
So we were given information from his sister in the dispatch call that she thinks her brother may have been shot. She had heard from someone else. When we arrived, we could see someone laying on the couch that appeared to be unresponsive, and we were banging on the door. And finally, he got up and answered the door. We asked him who he was. He said his name was Brad Wiggum. And we asked him, "Have you been shot?" I mean, we were responding to a person shot call. I mean, half of our entire precinct was on its way to this call to see what was going on, to make sure everything was okay. So I imagine the first thing that was asked is, are you okay? Have you been shot? Or have you been shot? Are you okay? What happened? I'd imagine that was the first one. I actually don't believe I was the first one on scene. And to add to the other attorney's questions, the call was dispatched at 3:30 a.m. the next morning.
Thank you. And the person that you have identified in this hearing is matching the photo in the photo lineup. Does that person also match who you observed in Officer Trunsdale's body cam of the incident 2 days later?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, and to elaborate on that as well, the photo lineup, the person that was identified was a picture of Charles Young. There were no names. He didn't identify Charles Young as the person who accidentally shot him. He only merely selected a photo of the person that shot him. He did not know his name. He didn't even know the nickname of Cash. He only knew him as Brady's friend who had come over. He selected a photo of the person who shot him. That photo was Charles Young. There were no names involved. There were no identifying factors like that. It was merely just a photo that he selected of the person who accidentally shot him.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Judge, respectfully, I understood that. When we play it back on YouTube, you'll see the prosecutor ask a question about Brad identifying the Cash as Charles Young. I didn't suggest that the officer did anything wrong. When she posed that question, I didn't object because I knew there was another way to identify him as Charles Young.
Okay. Do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, very, very quickly. So if I understand, Officer Altman, it's about 7.5, 8 hours after the shooting that the police are responding. Is that right?
Correct.
It's 7:30 p.m. until 3 a.m. And who did Brad say treated Brad? Who wrapped him up or did whatever, rudimentary mass unit?
I believe it was Brady that treated him there at the house. I believe they both said that Charles Young left shortly after.
Okay, and if I understand you correctly, then Brad would have had to change his shirt because although he may have been bleeding, nobody could see from the shirt he was wearing that he was bleeding. Is that fair to say? Do you recall that?
I don't recall that, but sure. He may have changed his shirt.
Okay, because when you see, you're asking him, have he been shot? And he has to lift up his shirt. It's not obvious from you looking at him, oh, you've been shot. Look at the blood seeping through your shirt.
No, it was not obvious when he answered.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. All right. Anything further from the state of this witness?
Nothing further from the state.
Can this witness be released, or do I need to place him in the waiting room?
I don't have any objection, Judge. It's up to the prosecutor.
You can be released.
Okay. Thank you, Officer Altman.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we going to do Black or Barber? Doesn't matter.
Officer Clack, please.
Can you hear me, Officer Clack?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. The Assistant District Attorney has some questions for you. We'll swear you in first.
Thank you. If you can please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Officer Tevin Clack,
How are you employed?
through the Gwinnett County Police Department.
Are you post certified?
Yes.
Did you take warrants in this case for obstruction and false information?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us how that came to be?
Yes, I was on routine patrol, just conducting the area, checking the area of this Kroger's 650 Singleton Road, which is in unincorporated Norcross. I observed a silver passenger car that was sitting in a handicap stall. It did not have a handicap permit on it, and it was also unoccupied. By the time I flipped around the parking lot to go back around to the vehicle, I observed the listed suspect, Mr. Charles Young, walk to the vehicle and sit inside of it. I advised dispatch that I was going to be initiating a traffic illegal parking call. Went out over the radio, I activated my blue light, and I exited my patrol vehicle and to engage in to the driver, and he turned around, looked at me. I told him, I tried to signal him to stop, and he continued on. And at that point, I got it back into my vehicle in order to try to catch him or to catch up to him. But he continued to go speeding through the parking lot. He went around a building, I believe it was a UFIT building. He pulled around there, which would have been the back side of the building. He came back out around from the opposite side at the end of the building and went back onto the road, or turned onto the roadway, which was Singleton Road. I followed him out, tried to catch up to him and follow him out onto the roadway, and then I observed him turning right into Chelsea Apartments. And I also went ahead and turned right into the Chelsea Apartments. And at that point, I kind of lost visual, so I made a left turn and I conducted another area check, just trying to see if I was able to find a vehicle that had done left from the scene of the Kroger's. I saw the vehicle parking, and then I also saw the person, Mr. Young, running from the vehicle with groceries towards an apartment building. I then drove up. I exited my vehicle. I attempted to begin trying to search for him because I did lost visual at that time. And there was a group of kids out there, along with adults, that were having a birthday party. And they pointed to me in the direction that he was going, or he had went to. So I had went around to the back of the building, and just as I turned the corner, I saw Mr. Young go into the shed of this patio, and I instructed him to give him verbal commands to come back outside. He came outside, and that's when he was placed in handcuffs.
Okay. And about what time of day was this occurring?
Approximately a little bit after 7:30 p.m.
Was it still light out?
It was.
What was the date? Sorry.
It was September 26, 2020.
And can you describe the vehicle that you were just talking about?
As far as I can remember, it was a silver passenger car. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a Chevy Cobalt or Chevy Cruze.
Okay, but not a SUV or truck, a passenger car.
It was a passenger car.
Okay. And so, can you describe from when you saw that vehicle parked in the handicap spot, how long until the defendant returned to the vehicle?
It was not even roughly 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a minute long at the most. It took me to get back around and flip around the parking lot and go back up to the vehicle.
And did he go directly to the driver's seat?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He actually walked in front of me and walked into the driver's seat because I believe it was the first handicap parking stall adjacent to the building.
Okay. And he was able to unlock the door and get inside the vehicle?
Yes.
At what point, kind of in that process, had he started to pull away before you were able to make contact with him, or was he still just sitting?
So I had pulled behind the vehicle, I blocked it in, and he was still sitting in the vehicle at that time. By the time I was getting out of the vehicle, I believe he was reversing the car. He couldn't go forward because there was a metal pole that was in front of him, the handicap sticker that was in front of him. So he had to reverse his vehicle back out and pull around and went out from the side.
Okay. So were you able to make any actual conversation or interaction with him before he actually pulled away?
No, he just looked at me. I signaled to him. I flashed my light at him. I said, hey, and he just continued to go, kept on going.
When you say light, are you talking a blue light or a flashlight?
I had a flashlight that was in my hand.
Okay. Did you ever initiate your blue light or siren?
Yes, I initiated my blue lights. I did not initiate my siren.
Before he pulled away?
Before he pulled away, my blue lights was activated.
Okay. You said he looked at you, but did he make any statements towards you?
At that time, no, he just looked at me. He looked over his left shoulder directly at me.
And were you in a marked patrol vehicle and a uniform as you are today?
Yes, sir, I was.
And did you continue to have your blue lights as you followed him in your vehicle?
As I continued to follow him, he kind of, like I said, he was speeding away pretty fast in the parking lot. And at one point I was not able to catch up to him. So at one point I did deactivate my blue lights. Once I did lose visual of him. But once he came back around from the side of the building of the UFIT parking lot, I reactivated my blue lights and followed him onto the roadway.
Were there other pedestrians in the parking lot that he was driving near?
Yes, there were a lot of other foot traffic and vehicles that were moving in the parking lot as well.
All right, and so when you, the Chelsea Apartments, about how far away is that from the Kroger where this began?
Not even almost a half a mile down the road. It's literally the apartment complex that backs up against the Kroger parking lot, or the shopping plaza, I should say, not the actual Kroger building, but the plaza.
Now, both of these locations within Gwinnett County?
Yes.
When you eventually traced him down to inside the Chelsea Apartments, were you able to have any conversation with him?
Once I identified that the vehicle was parking and I saw him running from the vehicle towards the building, and I found out, where the direction he went, I gave him verbal commands to come back out from the shed or the patio storage unit that he had fled into. Once he came out, I explained, I told him, I'm like, why did you run? You just parked in the parking stall. And I believe he made a statement that, when I signaled for him to stop, he got scared and he left.
Okay. Did he have an ID to present to you?
He did not have an ID to present to me, so I asked him what was his name and date of birth. He gave me his name, his first name, and he gave me a birthday. I believe the birthday he gave me was 12/8/1990. 12/7. He gave me the birthday of December the 8th, 1998, and I was not able to find a return with that name and date of birth. But there was a warrant popping up in our GCIC NCI system with the person with the same name, but the birth date was one day different than what he had originally gave me.
Would that be the 7th or the 9th?
That was the 7th, December the 7th, 1998.
Any reason why you didn't charge him with fleeing in the vehicle?
I did not charge him with fleeing in the vehicle just because he did go home. I was told from my superiors that fleeing and eluding would have been a proper charge just due to the fact that he didn't try hard enough to kind of get away.
Were you able to confirm that there was in fact no handicap permit for that vehicle?
Yes, I was. There was not one visible anywhere. There was not one on the tag or on the visor of the windshield.
And at no time did he become physical in his attempt to get away from you?
No, he did not become physical at any point.
All right. The person that you have been describing in this incident, do you see him participating in this video hearing today?
Yes, I see him with the blue mask and green jumpsuit.
All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney Lewis, you're a witness.
Yes, very briefly. Officer Clack, did my client give you a name when he came out of the shed?
When he came out of what? I'm sorry?
When he came out of the shed, did he give you a name? He was charged with false name. Did you charge him with false name?
I charged him with false name and date of birth for the date of birth.
Okay, he gave you the incorrect date of birth.
Correct.
Okay, that's it. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Any redirect?
I think we're,
Can this officer be released?
yes.
No objection, Judge.
Okay, thank you, Officer Clark.
Thank you.
Can you hear us, Officer Barber?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. ADA Bakari, your witness.
Thank you, Judge. If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
My name is Officer Tyler Barber.
And how are you employed?
I'm a police officer with Gwinnett County Police Department.
Are you post certified?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you take warrants in this case for fleeing and reckless driving?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain how that came to be?
I was doing routine patrol at around 1:52 in the morning on June 9th, 2020. I observed a vehicle traveling down Pleasant Hill Road with no headlights on. At this time, it was dark out. I maneuvered behind the vehicle and initiated a traffic stop on the vehicle. The vehicle stopped at Pleasant Hill Road and 85 intersection. I made contact with the driver. I obtained his license. I looked at the license and confirmed that the picture on the driver's license was the driver of the vehicle. I told the driver to stay in the vehicle and I would be right back with him. As I went back to my patrol car, as I was running the driver through my GCIC system, the vehicle then made an unsafe U-turn at a red light, almost causing an accident. It then fled down Pleasant Hill towards Sweetwater Road. While he was fleeing, I still observed the vehicle that had no lights on. It was traveling on a highway to speed and weaving in and out of traffic. I then took warrants out on the driver at the Gwinnett County Central Precinct using video chat.
All right. So what was the last point at which you had visual contact with the vehicle?
The last point I had was as far as I could see down the road.
Which road?
Pleasant Hill Road.
Okay. And so were you able to see him make the turn onto Sweetwater?
There's like a crest road right there. When he made it over that crest, I'm not sure if he turned or kept going.
Okay. And so, can you describe the final stop from the initial traffic stop again on Pleasant Hill? Where were you?
What exactly do you mean?
So when you first made the traffic stop, you said you stopped on Pleasant Hill. I think you said Pleasant Hill and 85.
Yeah, he stopped at the light at Pleasant Hill and 85.
At the interchange to get on the highway?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And so when he took off from there, he continued south on Pleasant Hill?
No, he made a U-turn right there at the intersection.
Okay. And at 1:52 in the morning, can you describe the traffic?
That night it was kind of medium traffic.
Okay. At the point he made the U-turn, he described it was a near accident. Did you see any other close encounters with other vehicles down Pleasant Hill?
I did. He was weaving in between cars as he made his way down with no lights on and without using his turn signal also.
And would you have been able to estimate his speed?
I do not. It was a high rate and unsafe rate.
Did you attempt to follow him?
I did not.
Were your blue lights activated during the traffic stop still?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you in a marked patrol vehicle and in uniform with a badge as you are now?
Yes, ma'am.
Was anyone else in the vehicle with him?
No, ma'am.
And so the license that was provided to you, what was the name on that license?
First name Charles, last name Young.
Okay. Were you able to see if that was a valid license?
I did, and it was a valid license.
Did you notice any odors coming from the vehicle?
I did not.
And from your interactions with him, did he appear to be under the influence of anything?
Not when I was talking to him. He did not.
Okay. Did he actually put his vehicle in park initially, or turn it off?
I believe so. He put it in park.
Okay. Was there some time that you spent in your patrol vehicle before he made that U-turn and took off?
It was maybe 30 seconds.
Okay. Was there, after calling this in, was there any attempt to locate the vehicle that night?
I patrolled the area later that night, and I did not.
Was there any attempt to go to the address on his license?
I actually did contact the officers that were patrolling the area. They informed me he had other active warrants out for his arrest, and they said they had been watching the house. However, he hadn't been there in some time.
Okay, so other officers were familiar with him by name?
Yes, ma'am.
And where he would live?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, but fair to say you did not have any further contact with him after he made that U-turn and pulled away?
No, ma'am, yes.
All right. That's all I have.
Good afternoon, Judge. Officer, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me start here. What time was it that you pulled my client over?
It was approximately 1:52 in the morning.
Was anybody else in the vehicle?
No, no, sir.
Okay, and it sounds like at the point where he makes the U-turn and he takes off, you're not really giving any chase. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's all I had. Thank you very much, Judge.
Okay, any redirect from the state?
I think I did miss the location of the traffic stop. Was that in Gwinnett County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I believe, getting the cases confused now, but I believe I did have him identify. Do you see the person that was driving that vehicle in this hearing today?
I do.
If you can just describe him.
He is with the blue surgical mask on and the green shirt.
Thank you. That's all.
Anything further, Attorney Lewis?
Judge. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, this witness be released?
Yes, please.
No objection.
Okay, thank you, Officer Barber.
Thank you.
Okay, any other evidence from the state?
Nothing further.
Anything from defense?
Judge, no evidence, only argument.
Okay, you may proceed.
Second and the third officer will submit those charges, reckless fleeing, misdemeanor, reckless driving, giving false date of birth. Those misdemeanors are not the issue. The issue, Judge, is the two warrants that relate to the possession with intent to distribute marijuana, 20 W07920. I almost don't know where to start. The first two doors that the court gets to in the preliminary hearing are the credibility or non-credibility doors. 7.5 to 8 hours after a person is shot with buckshot or Smith by accident, Mr. Brady Umbelow comes and brings some marijuana to the officer 7.5 to 8 hours later, after they didn't even call the police, after the person who shot sister gets information from a 14-year-old about the possibility of him being shot. Mr. Brumbelow comes and produces some marijuana and says, oh, by the way, Mr. Charles Young, he doesn't even say Charles Young, does he? No, he says Cash Graham Demetrius. Everything about this is a lie. The name he gives you is a lie. Nothing's wrong here when somebody's shot 7.5 hours later. Everything's a lie. And then the prosecutor wants the court to believe that when that person, Brumbelow, produces the marijuana, that my client, Charles Young, gave him the marijuana. Okay. If that sounds too incredible, you can just dismiss that, and then you can dismiss the gun charge. If you can hold on to any shred of credibility there, Judge, we then get to the next thing. My client didn't bring any shotgun. Even if you believe he sold the marijuana to Brumbelow, they're there smoking. The sale is over. Oh, wait a minute, what's this here? A crossbow? No, that's not a crossbow. That's my brand new shotgun. Oh, let me see it. Bam. That's got nothing to do with the marijuana. That's got absolutely nothing. They're smoking, and a gun goes off by their account by accident. And there's no firearm, possession of a firearm during a commission or attempt to commit a felony, the felony being possession with intent. Because even if you believe, if you can hold on to a shred of the credibility, this firearm's got nothing to do with the sale of marijuana. The marijuana is sold over. We here smoking and enjoying ourselves when the gun goes off. No relationship. The gun is gone. I think the possession with intent to distribute is also gone, just because the credibility of this credibility of the witness always has to be an issue. But when they start lying about who sold them the marijuana, and it's 7.5 hours later, and they didn't call about an ambulance, and they come to the door and he's changed his shirt and already had bandaged up, and then he says, oh, by the way, oh yes, I did get shot, and he sold us some marijuana. Come on. So we would argue, Judge, both of the felonies should go away, and the court should bind over all of the remaining misdemeanors.
And what's the state's position?
Judge, I think just as far as the marijuana and the possession of the gun, there is definitely credibility to be held by the accounts of both Brad and Brady. You have an identification made by, I just want to make sure I'm getting them straight. An identification made by Brady. I'm sorry. The identification made by Brad, the victim, who otherwise had never met this person before. He makes an identification that does have a connection to the address from a second incident that is almost identical to the address provided by Brady, who does have some familiarity with the defendant. If it was complete conjecture on all ends, those types of things would not be able to line up. That this, in fact, was the person that they were interacting with in the house.
Judge, we'll concede that. We'll concede it's him in the house. That doesn't change my argument.
Right. The marijuana is still there when the officers come. It is handed over by Brady. He makes no attempt to conceal it or hide it. That is consistent with it being brought into the home by someone else. But for the sale, bringing the marijuana and the sale of the marijuana, there would be no smoking of marijuana. And it's that during that interaction where the gun is fired and being handled by the defendant shortly after the sale of the marijuana. So we believe there is sufficient nexus in time and the identification information provided by two separate witnesses that do provide the credibility to believe the entire account of what happened that night. So we would ask that you find over all charges.
All right, so I am going to dismiss the possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute, possession of the firearm. I am going to find, because you're conceding that he was at the location, the reckless conduct.
Judge, can you heard at the bond, with all the misdemeanors bound over, I'm going to be requesting a bond amount of $2,500. I don't know if the prosecutor has any objection to that. I don't have any objection to her presenting as GCIC to the court.
Okay, Assistant District Attorney.
And yes, assuming he did have bonds on the marijuana's original, or I'm sorry, on the misdemeanors. I assume he has a bond already on all the misdemeanors. So you're asking for.
He may, Judge. I just don't know what they are, so I'm going to respectfully ask for a bond in aggregate year of $2,500.
Okay, he's got 1,000 on the obstruction. He has 1,000 on the false name or information. He has for some reason he has no bond on the reckless conduct. It's a misdemeanor. And okay, so the marijuana, possession of the firearm. He's got 2,500 on the fleeing or attempting to elude, and he's got another 2,500 on the reckless driving, and then I have 500 on I don't know what this charge is. Hold on one second. I don't think there's a charge right there.
False name.
It says not having the headlights on.
Oh, yeah. Citation.
Okay.
So I believe the only thing outstanding is the reckless conduct. We just asked, I think a reasonable amount is 25 and keep the rest intact.
Okay, on the reckless conduct.
Yeah, and so obviously the prosecutor is asking, I guess she's conceding 2,500 on the one that doesn't have a bond, and when I add all that up, that sounds like it's going to be close to 10,000. Obviously, I'm asking for the court for a $2,500 bond. I don't know if she wants to tell you anything about his record. I don't think he has any felony convictions.
Let me hear from the Assistant District Attorney and see what she says.
Thank you, Judge. Sorry. He does have 11 cycles in Georgia. Dispositions I do have are a conviction for criminal trespass, obstruction, misdemeanor marijuana, 2016. Misdemeanor theft by shoplifting, 2017. No license, 2018. No license, and possession of marijuana with intent to distribute, 2018. And the district.
Okay, I'm going to do a 5,000 aggregate bond.
Thank you, Judge.